Welcome to Destination Business Freedom, hosted by Pat Mancuso. Join us as we explore success strategies and hacks from leading entrepreneurs, helping you bridge the gap between financial success and personal freedom. Your journey starts here.
Thanks for joining us today at the Destination Business Freedom Podcast. I am Pat Mancuso, the host of our podcast, where I interview thought leaders, entrepreneurs, and business owners who have either exited their businesses or are on that journey. My goal is to help small to medium-sized business owners close the gap between their finances and their freedom, and ultimately define and arrive at their destination and exit their business, no matter what that looks like to them. Now, I'm going to introduce our guest today, our amazing guest that we have with us today. But before I do, I've got a sponsorship message. This episode is brought to you by the Mancuso Consulting Group, where we are committed to helping entrepreneurs and business owners close the gap between their finances and their freedom. The Mancuso method was created by Pat Mancuso, and it encompasses over 30 years as an owner of multiple businesses and has worked with thousands of business owners and entrepreneurs. He helps them rise above the daily grind and arrive at their desired destination, which is the reason most people started their business in the first place. When you go to www.themancuso.com and take our short assessment, you will receive a powerful report, which we call your personalized roadmap. That personalized roadmap is a destination address. In addition to that, Pat will meet with you for 30 minutes on a no obligation call. And at the end of that 30 minutes, if he has not provided you $10,000 worth of value, he'll write you a check for $500 on the spot. That's how much he believes in the power of the method and the power of the process. So please reach out if you're interested to www.themancuso.com. So now that we're done with that, I am excited to introduce to you today Addie Klevit. Let me give you Addie's bio. She is a founder and CEO, an amazing individual in those roles. She's also a leader and a visionary of the Business Success Consulting Group. Her 25 years of knowledge and experience as a trained industrial engineer, that sounds pretty powerful, an industrial engineer, management consultant, and business executive, give her a unique understanding of the challenges business face. And that's why we invite folks like this to our podcast, because that's what we want to talk about. Is what are the challenges that business owners face in that journey to their destination. Addie utilizes her practical know-how and wisdom to successfully help organizations and companies of any size dramatically improve their efficiency and performance. By leveraging her ability to understand business processes as well as people and drawing on her high caliber skills in vital areas of personal management, finance, and operations, Addie can virtually help any business owner achieve any goals and bring order to their lives. And boy, do entrepreneurs need order to their lives. When Addie isn't busy running Business Success Consulting Group or directly working with clients, she enjoys spending time with her husband and son and volunteering in the community, traveling, being outdoors, and cooking healthy food. Now, maybe we need to talk about that cooking healthy food, because I think we all could use that. So Addie, welcome to the show.
Thank you, Pat. And I love the introduction. I mean, I like the idea, like how confident you are in your method that you're going to write a $500 check if you don't find $10,000 right away. I think it's amazing.
You know, it's thank you for that. And it's funny because if I actually talked with many entrepreneurs and business owners and I shared one tax strategy with them, it's about $14,000 a year for most business owners. So if we just start with that, most of them are not taking advantage of things like that, but we offer way, way more. And I know you do as well in working with the clients that you work with.
Absolutely.
So what I always like to do when we start these conversations is talk with the entrepreneur, the business owner like yourself, and go back a little bit to a few pieces in their journey. And then, of course, we're going to jump into the great things you're doing for clients right now in your business. So your journey, let's not go all the way back to high school, because if we did that, both you and I would be here forever, particularly me. However, let's go back to, when did you first kind of identify the entrepreneurial spirit, the entrepreneur inside of you? When did that happen, and how did that come about?
You know, honestly, I think we have to go back to high school, because that's when I started. You know, it was I started my own tutoring business when I was in high school, and I was very successful at it. I mean, I was very good at it. I'm a very good teacher, very good at explaining things very simply. So I started with one student that I helped her. My mom was actually an English tutor. She tutored for years English, English literature, etc. And she had a student that also needed help with math, and I was very good at math. And I helped her, and I was like, wow, I can really help that person, that kid. And she really started excelling in school. I'm really good at that. I can do more. And I start word of mouth. It just started. And I would be working like 4 or 5 hours almost every afternoon, and making quite a bit good money out of it from it. And I was able to then, buy my own things that I wanted to buy without relying on my parents. And go like, wow, this is cool. This is freedom. Like you were talking about freedom.
Yes.
And, as a matter of fact, we actually did a survey recently, and we asked entrepreneurs, what do you find most desirable about being a business owner? And you're right, they said freedom, creativity, ability to create, being in control of my own destiny. And I realized that that's what you do when you have your own business.
Yes.
That is freedom. So that was the start of it, and of course, it evolved. And as you said, we can be here all afternoon talking about it. But if you want to go to the beginning, that's the beginning.
Yeah. At first, kudos to you. I personally in our journey in our family, we had to hire a tutor for our son. And this was an individual who had graduated from high school, the same high school that my son went to, a number of, few years older. But without him, I'm not sure my son would have made it through school, graduated high school. He went on to culinary school, graduated culinary school. And I don't know that would have happened without that tutor. So that absolutely is an impact on people. So, that is awesome. That is absolutely awesome.
Thank you. As a matter of fact, I actually met one of my students that I probably tutored her, at this point, probably 30 something years ago. And she's now a mother, has 3 kids, but she still remembers. And she was like full of praise and talking about like what an impact it made on her life. And I was like, wow, this is what I do. What I do is because you make that impact on people and you are able to help people.
Well, and that is true. And you mentioned something a little bit earlier based upon the survey that y'all did. And one of the things that you said came up was from entrepreneurs was that desire for freedom. And unfortunately, I don't know what you found, but many of them don't have that for the reason that they actually became entrepreneurs. They right. didn't go to, college to get their entrepreneurial degree, although there's entrepreneurships programs starting now.
And even if they did, it's not it's not what life teaches you, and it's not overcoming the obstacles that exist every day. And it doesn't teach you how to deal with your employees and and all of that. It's just you can't learn it other than from experience.
So what you're saying is it's not real world.
To a degree. Wouldn't you agree? I went to school and studied it. And then I remember my first job, I go like, oh, this is nothing like what I learned in college. It was great to spend 4 years in learning. Yeah. But this is a little bit different.
A little bit different. Well, let me ask you this question. So in your journey as an owner, so we know where your entrepreneurial journey started, but as an owner now, over that, over your life of being an owner, what has been the biggest surprise to you that in that journey, like as an owner, like you weren't expecting it, or you maybe were expecting it, but weren't expecting it to be to the degree that was? What's been the biggest surprise?
Honestly, I'm not surprised anymore, so I have to look back. But yes. The biggest surprise was like when my first employee quit, I had to fire an employee. Or, when you feel like when somebody is leaving you and they're no longer part of the business, you feel like the business is going to go bankrupt and collapse. And then you go like, you know what? I can get over it. It's fine. Yeah. It is, of course, it's hard. I'm not saying it's nothing and it's not,
yep.
It's not hard. It's a challenge. But that was definitely a surprise. Getting through the pandemic was a surprise. It was one of those things that you never expected. And you thought, oh my gosh, everything. Like I remember April 2020, it's kind of like April 2020 was, okay, I was able to maintain some clients and we can riding along. And then May was like, wow, okay. Yeah. And then I had to reinvent everything, which I did. But that was a surprise because we all went through it, right? So that's a surprise. So it's, those things that you don't expect, you don't plan for, you experience for the first time and you think that this is horrible. And then you either get used to it or you figure out how to do it better, and things just get better and better.
Well, you know what's interesting, and I know that you'll probably, agree with this in the work that you do. I don't think I've had one entrepreneur on the podcast that I've done. We started our podcast right at the pandemic. We've renamed it, but the point is that 100% of every business owner that I've ever asked that question to generally says the biggest surprise was people issues. And I know that doesn't surprise you, but it is one of those almost absolutes. So let me ask you this question. What's been the biggest mistake that you've made? Now, I know most people will say, well, mistakes are learning opportunities, and they truly are. But I always like to find out and learn from others so I don't have to repeat those mistakes as a business owner. So from your perspective, what is the one thing, the one kind of, if you had to do it over, knowing what you know now, that you would have done it differently at the time?
We learn from the mistakes, as you said, but I think one thing that looking back is being too much of a generalist when I started my business. And I don't know if it was a mistake, because honestly, you start your own business and you go, okay, what am I good at? Here's what I'm good at. I'm going to offer it. And it's kind of like spaghetti against the wall and whatever sticks. But then when I learned that I actually have a niche and I should concentrate on that niche, that's when my business really took off, because that was a needed need. And it also allowed me to improve the quality and concentrate on specific processes and procedures to achieve a result every single time.
Right.
And that was very important. The other one is, of course, not hiring and not expanding soon enough, because as soon as I start delegating and expanding, and it's not perfect yet, but it's definitely the move in the right direction. So that's also a lesson learned.
Yeah, very common, very common. So then let's flip the switch a little bit and go, what's the biggest success that you're most proud of, in terms of maybe it was a product you launched, maybe it was a service that, hit scale, maybe it was an impact on a client? What do you feel like your biggest success has been in that entrepreneurial journey?
I think it's developing our product and developing our services, and being able to step outside the box, outside of my comfort zone. I think I'm really proud in the network that I developed. I'm really grateful for the connections that I have. That it wasn't like a natural thing for me to just, I didn't know how to network. I didn't know how to create connections, but now I have such a vast network and I enjoy it. I enjoy the people. I enjoy the connections. That's a success. I really enjoy my team. Yesterday, we have staff meeting on every Monday, and I looked, it's virtual because, we are remote. And I looked at the screen and I go like, it was like one more, it's another square showed up on the screen. And there was like all the squares. And I'm like, wow, this is like, I'm so proud of it. And I'm so proud of the smiling faces and the people that we enjoy working together. It just like, it makes me very happy.
Yeah, it's pretty cool feeling.
Of course, the success of my clients, that's top everything. Like when I hear a success story, when I get a success story, when I hear people are doing well and they expanded and grew and they're doing better than ever and are using what we created for them, that is priceless.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, and you talked about networking, and obviously I'd be remiss if I didn't mention Rise 25 and John and Dr. Jeremy, and that's how we got connected. And that networking piece is a really important part of it. So there's no doubt about that. That helps.
Absolutely. Yeah, I love Jeremy and John, and they produce my podcast.
Yep.
And that is really, I started just like you during the pandemic. I started a podcast. It was the new way of networking. And I met so many great people, great conversations, and great connections.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Okay, so let's shift gears. Let's get really into why I love to bring people like you to the podcast. And that is this. I find that if you ask the majority of business owners, which I do, tell me, what is your exit point? Like, what's your end game in terms of, it doesn't have to be a specific number. It doesn't even have to be a specific time. It doesn't even have to be a specific way. But ask me, I want to ask people if they've thought about that. And the majority of the time they haven't. And it'd be simply like, I'm in Minnesota, driving down to Florida, not putting in an address in the GPS. Eventually, I'll probably get to Florida, but I might end up in Texas before I get to Florida. So I want to start off with, in this conversation with you, of really the premise of we want to help people get to that destination. And you're doing some great things with people. And it's generally not one person. It's generally not one consultant or one accountant or one CPA. But in your work, let's talk about some of the most common things that your clients experience in terms of that journey to that destination. If I ask you that question, what would those common things look like?
Yeah. So, what we do is we create, document, improve, and implement processes and procedures for companies.
Okay.
And in order for the companies to actually be able, or owners, first of all, let's talk about owners. In order for them to be able to step out of the business, in order for them to exit, whether it is, what does exit mean? I mean, it can be selling, it can be just phasing out and then starting other endeavors and somebody running the business. It can be even exiting to take a vacation, right? I mean, depends what the exit is. That freedom, like you were talking about, that you are closing the gap between the freedom, between where they're at right now and the financial freedom that they want. Okay, so we close that gap. How do we close them? I mean, they have to be able to not retain all the information in their heads, right? We have to actually document it, systematize it, and creating into a system that can be replicable, that people can actually replicate and use and do it over and over again. And so it's basically success replicated, right? I mean, we take the success and we replicate it so others can actually use it. And even if it's not successful, then we help them systematize it so it is successful, right? And then also, how do you trust your employee? How do you delegate? Because honestly, us as business owners, one of the things when I talk to so many business owners, and I had that think myself as well. I'm sure, Pat, you as well, it crossed your mind in terms of like, well, how is anybody going to do it as good as well as I do, right? Well, that's what we help people with, because if it all relies on you and you cannot pass it on to others, it becomes a problem. Right. So we help by doing that, by actually creating those systems, create the visibility in order to achieve consistency in the business. And then you can take a look at it and see as a business owner, oh, this is what's being done. Or you can train your employees, you can pass the hats to others. So there are different ways that we do that. But think about it. When you want to sell your business, if you actually had everything documented, right, then it totally increased the value of the company. Like I have a client that sold this company for twice as much as he could have gotten without it. I sat with one of my clients that was actually selling his company, and I saw the buyer, like his eyes just open up when we showed him all of the processes that are documented. Yeah, it's just as simple as that. So I definitely help business owners to arrive at that destination. As you said, it's not just one consultant that does it all. We have to, for an owner to exit, he has to have a team, or her have to have a team. They have to have a team around them to actually accomplish what they want to accomplish.
Well, what's interesting, and again, I say it's interesting to get people's curiosity piqued as they're listening or watching, but I was on a call this morning with a company that we're interviewing to do some marketing for us. And they made a comment, and it really struck with me, that we're going to create the system for you, but then it's yours. And by having it, you now added valuation to your company because it's not an entrepreneurial marketing. And, so you say that, and that just, strikes a chord. I already knew that, but when you hear it, right, as an entrepreneur, it just resonates. And then the other thing is two individuals I've had the opportunity to interview previously on the podcast, Roland Frazier from the Epic Network and Ryan Dice from Scalable, is they're in the exit arena, if you may, acquiring businesses and teaching business owners to focus on that exit. And you're right, it could be exit to sell, exit to stay on and not run the day-to-day, exit as an investor, or maybe it's an ESOP. There's many options and ways to exit. But the point is that those systems are so essential, because once you as the founder or the CEO or the entrepreneur walk out the door, if those things aren't in place, then the value walks out the door, or a portion of that value walks out the door. So that doesn't surprise me that that's very common in your world.
Yeah, totally.
So let me ask you this then. If that's common and it seems so common sense, logical, then why do business owners struggle so much with embracing it and putting it in place from your perspective?
There's probably the first of all is why do they struggle is because it's easier to go and sell or easier to go talk to somebody or do business development than to sit down and actually document your processes. So that's number one. That's
Wait a minute. It's easier to not slow down to speed up is what you're saying. Like, no, stop for just a second and build this out. And they go, no, I don't want to do that.
Right, exactly. It's looking into the future as opposed to the gratification, the instant gratification of the now and what energizes them in terms of let's go to another networking event or let's have another sales meeting and let's close another deal. And I feel so energized, but no, I don't want to have I don't have the time to sit, quote unquote, don't have the time, because don't have the time, meaning I don't want to invest the time in sitting and doing it. So it's just because I ask that question every time I meet with a prospective client. I ask them, why aren't you not doing it yourself? Well, it's always lack of time or lack of know-how. And the lack of time is basically I'm not going to invest time doing that because I prefer doing something else. So those are the two answers that I get.
I love it.
Yeah. So it's really a matter of because you're also in that catch-22 of I'm just running and running and running and running the business, and I'm doing it and I'm doing it and I'm doing more and I'm hustling and hustling and hustling. I'm not going to stop, sit, organize in order for me to create a future here.
Yeah. It just sitting on our side of the table, if you may, you see it and I see it, and it's easy for us to look at it being outside of it, right? We don't have to worry about, meeting payroll in that company. We have to worry about meeting in our own company. So it's easy for us to do that. And yet the whole point of it is when you step out from it day to day, you can see it so much clearer. And that's why consultants generally can help clients to a high degree, because they see it, but they see it with a different lens. And that's why it's such a valuable resource to have folks like you doing what you're doing. And particularly in that area, I love that niche perspective, if you may, from the systems, because you're right. There's a value add there when you can, and it's not just value add to exit, right? It's value add to go on vacation. It's value add if you lose an employee, you've got a system to just bring in now and implement that somebody can jump into.
Yeah, and it's a value add also in terms of customer service and risk mitigation, because the value that you provide for your customers is so much higher. Right. Because, you have consistency or you have the process dialed in. So the customer service experience is so much better that you also gain more customers, more referrals, more word of mouth, etc.
So let me ask you this. This is the kind of one that you may have to pause for a little bit. But if you had to look at systems, right, and you had to take systems in terms of, let's say, sales, operations, finance, and there's probably 12 other ones you guys have. But my question is, if you were to be talking with someone today and they're listening to this, what would be the first most important system that you would encourage a business owner to implement? Now, it might be an unfair question, but I sometimes ask unfair.
No, that's fine. And my answer to it is very simple. The system that I would recommend that you implement is the one that will get you the biggest return on investment, whatever your return on investment is. So, for instance, if right now your sales are suffering, or let's say you want to delegate the sales hat and you want to hire another estimator, document your sales processes. Let's say right now you're bringing on a new employee in operations, document operations. Let's say, for instance, HR, there is a problem with HR, or that if you document HR, you will be able, or maybe your HR manager is leaving. And that, there is a wealth of information there, document that. So it's whatever that, it's a very simple answer, and it's not a cookie cutter. It's every business will have its own process that they will have to document.
Yeah. I kind of knew that was going to be the answer. And then I've always heard this, what's the best system to implement? One that you'll use, right? So people have a lot
There is always have to be return on investment. You have to have that. Absolutely.
Absolutely. So let me ask you this. So I'm an entrepreneur. I've said, okay, Addie, I want to bring in a system, right? And then we talk about a system. What's the biggest struggle after they make that commitment to implement that system? Do you see a big challenge there sometimes?
the challenge, once they make it a commitment,
Yeah.
then they do it. Of course, and I make sure that it happens. Myself and my team make sure that it happens. If they don't have, because when we're there is accountability, there is like a commitment.
Sure.
There is, it's an investment. They are investing already, so they are using it. But I think it might be one of the challenges could be resistance from an employee to do that, because we don't just work with the owner. We have to extract knowledge from employees.
Sure.
But then there is a problem. There is a problem with culture. There is a problem that you already have an employee that is either not in the right seat or not the right fit for your culture. So we have ways to overcome that. We always make sure that we get buy-in from all the employees, that we reassure them that this is not going to affect their job security, etc. So that can be a challenge. Another challenge that I see is getting rid of all habits of, instead of actually referring to the procedures and then answering the question like, how do you do that? Well, let me answer you. Let me tell you, as opposed to actually go look at the procedures. What do the procedures say?
Right. That makes perfect sense, right? Human beings, the habits, they're hard to break sometimes, particularly ones that we're comfortable in what we do 8 hours a day.
That's right.
So let me ask you this. This is going to be a fun question, and it's just one that popped into my head. And sometimes when they pop into my head, they're kind of like, oh, I got to ask it. So you've been in a number of organizations over your journey. What's been kind of the weirdest thing you've discovered in going in? And of course, you got to protect the guilty here. But you went into an organization, they had a system in place, and you went like, holy Hannah, like you really function with this system in place. Anything that comes to mind?
Well, yeah, I mean, you see it like, you invent different methods of doing things, like using, 10 Excel spreadsheets in order to do something that, you can actually implement with the software, or doing this or doing that when you can actually automate it, as an example, right? Or doing things because that's the way we've always done it. Yeah.
Okay. So yeah, you're going to see things like that don't logically make sense, and maybe they work, but they certainly didn't work at a high level and scale.
Right.
So when you've been in this journey, right? And so you come into an organization. How do you then interact with that organization in terms of the process? And I know it's going to be a longer answer, to kind of put you on the spot. But if you said, okay, here's the 3 things that we do to implement a system in an organization for folks that if like maybe they aren't in a position to hire you, or, but they know they need to change a system. What might you say to somebody who needs to change a system today?
Yeah, so the first thing is design, right? You have to identify the system and then design it, process map it. You have to map what you have. You have to map the different ingredients. You have to map where we're at. And then what you do is you start documenting it.
Okay.
And after that, you look for ways to improve, ways to do better, ways to create an improvement. And then, you have to make sure you implement it, and you have to make sure it's being followed by all.
So I think I know the answer to this question, but I'm going to ask it anyways. Does it ever stop? Do you ever stop updating, changing, upgrading systems?
No, absolutely not. It's a continual improvement, and it's a commitment, but it's something that definitely has the return on investment. So yes.
Yeah. I remember in Ryan's book, Scalable, he tells this story about companies where they create all these great systems, and then the systems sit on the shelf and nobody uses them. And you always get, because I'm sure that happens in a lot of companies, right? Like, the owner or the CEO brings in somebody like you, and they do this incredible job of doing things. And then all of a sudden, like a month later, it's like they don't know where the manual is, and they never dusted it off. So I figured that was the answer, that it never stops. So I wanted to kind of get that on the table.
That's true.
What haven't I asked you so far that I should ask you about what you do and the impact that you're having on clients?
I think you did very well on asking a lot of questions. So I think it's really, it's really defining the ROI of the project. And we talked about it, but I want to emphasize it again. Is like, why are you going to be engaged in this project? What are the benefits you're going to get? And I think
Right.
that's the main point.
That's awesome. That's awesome. So, who are some of your mentors? Who are people that you follow in terms of maybe you don't know them directly? You know, I love this concept where I read a book and that's a mentor, even though I've never met the author. So, who are some of your mentors? People that you follow?
Yeah, it's a really good question. There are definitely several. I love reading books. I love hearing new ways of doing things. And it can vary. So I don't necessarily have give you, okay, this, I'm just read all the books from that. I like to read books and really take main points from that particular book. It's kind of like I'm like, wow, this is like really a nugget that I can use and I can implement. So that's what I do. I mean, I have a subscription to Audible. I listen to a lot of books. I learn. I go like, yeah, I can implement that. Oh no, you know what? That idea doesn't really not really work for my business.
So I'm going to put you on the spot. Okay, what's the best book you've read recently or one you're reading right now in terms of business?
I read a book, Giftology, which was, and I interviewed the author for my podcast, and I really like that concept of giving back like that and really giving in a way that is meaningful. So that I just finished the book. It's great.
I love it. I love it. Well, you're right. There's so much information in, sometimes people look at a book and they go, wow, there's so much information, but every book has 4 to 5 things that you could probably take away.
Absolutely.
Some more obviously. And so that's great to hear. So Addie, let's do this. Let's kind of close it out with 2 things. First, I'd love to get a final thought from you. Then you would share with people, if they're listening or they're watching, well, as what you do in your role and interacting with, entrepreneurs and business owners, kind of what would be a final thought you would share with them?
Well, I would share that, putting order and organization in your life and in your business is very important, very therapeutic, and can really get you to the next level.
I love that. I love that. I need to remember that when my wife is organizing and driving me crazy because I'm not the organizational person. So I got to have order on organization. You probably extended my marriage 10 or 15 years.
I'm so happy to hear that. That's awesome.
Okay, so if somebody wants to reach out to you, get in touch with you, find out more about what you do, how would they do that?
All right, so I'm on LinkedIn. So it's Adi Klevit. Look me up in LinkedIn. You can message me there. You can set up a time to speak. We have a 30-minute free process mapping session. You can text us or call us at 503-662-2911. And of course, email me, adi@bizsuccesscg.com. Many ways to access me.
I love it. I love it. We'll put all that information in the show notes. And Adi, we so appreciate you. And certainly, again, for John and Dr. Jeremy connecting us. This was amazing. I've taken a number of things away that we'll be able to apply in our business. So I appreciate you. I appreciate you sharing everything today and certainly appreciate your time.
Well, thank you, Pat. I appreciate you having me.
Yeah, thanks so much. To our listeners, you can find us anywhere on all the podcast stations. We thank you for your support. Please share it with other folks. That's the way that we can continue to build on the message and impact more lives. So thanks, everybody. Take care and have an amazing day.
Thank you for joining Destination Business Freedom with Pat Mancuso. May the insights and strategies shared guide you towards financial prosperity and personal freedom. Continue to navigate boldly. Until next time, keep transforming challenges into achievements. Farewell, and stay the course.